Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/BrianEDenton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 105. Chapter 105. Next morning, having taken leave of no one but the Count, and not waiting for the ladies to appear, Prince Andrew set off for home. It was already the beginning of June, when on his return journey he drove into the birch forest where the gnarled old oak had made so strange and memorable an impression upon him. In the forest, the harness bells sounded yet more muffled than they had done 6 weeks before, for now all was thick, shady, and dense, and the young firs dotted about in the forest did not jar on the general beauty, but, lending themselves to the mood around, were delicately green with fluffy green shoots. The whole day had been hot. Somewhere a storm was gathering, but only a small cloud had scattered some raindrops lightly, sprinkling the road and the sappy leaves. The left side of the forest was dark in the shade, the right side glittered in the sunlight, wet and shiny, and scarcely swayed in the breeze. Everything was in blossom. The nightingales trilled, and their voices reverberated, now here, now far away. Yes, here in this forest was that oak tree with which I agreed, thought Prince Andrew. But where is it? He again wondered, gazing at the left side of the road, and without recognizing it, he looked with admiration at the very oak he sought. The old oak, quite transfigured, spreading out a canopy of sappy, dark green foliage, stood wrapped and slightly trembling in the rays of the evening sun. Neither gnarled fingers, nor old scars, nor old doubts and sorrows were any of them in evidence now. Through the hard, century-old bark, even where there were no twigs, leaves had sprouted, such as no one could hardly believe the old veteran could have produced. Yes, it is the same oak, thought Prince Andrew, and all at once he was seized by an unreasoning springtime feeling of joy and renewal. All the best moments of his life suddenly rose to his memory. Austerlitz, with the lofty heavens, his wife's dead reproachful face, Pierre at the ferry, that girl thrilled by the beauty of the night, and that night itself, and the moon, and all this rushed suddenly into his mind. No, life is not over at 31, Prince Andrew suddenly decided finally and decisively. It is not enough for me to know what I have in me. Everyone must know it. Pierre, and that young girl who wanted to fly away into the sky, everyone must know me, so that my life may not be lived for myself alone, while others live so apart from it, but so that it may be reflected in them all, and they and I may live in harmony. On reaching home, Prince Andrew decided to go to Petersburg that autumn, and found all sorts of reasons for this decision. A whole series of sensible and logical considerations showing it to be essential for him to go to Petersburg, and even to re-enter the service, kept springing up in his mind. He could not now understand how he could ever have even doubted the necessity of taking an active share in life, just as a month before he had not understood how the idea of leaving the quiet country could ever enter his head. It now seemed clear to him that all his experience of life must be senselessly wasted unless he applied it to some kind of work again, and take a more active part in life. He did not even remember how formerly, on the strength of similar wretched logical arguments, it had seemed so obvious that he would be degrading himself if he now, after the lessons he had in life, allowed himself to believe in the possibility of being useful and in the possibility of happiness or love. Now reason suggested quite the opposite. After that journey to Ryazan, he found the country dull. His former pursuits no longer interested him, and often, when sitting alone in his study, he got up, went to the mirror, and gazed a long time at his own face. Then he would turn away to the portrait of his dead Liza, who, with hair curled, looked tenderly and gaily at him out of the gilt frame. She did not now say those formal, terrible words to him, but looked simply, merrily, and inquisitively at him. And Prince Andrew, crossing his arms behind him, long paced the room, now frowning, now smiling, as he reflected on those irrational and inexpressible thoughts, secret as a crime, which altered his whole life and were connected with Pierre, with fame, with the girl at the window, the oak, and woman's beauty and love. And if anyone came into his room at such moments, he was particularly cold, stern, and above all, unpleasantly logical. "My dear," Prince Mary, entering at such a moment, would say, "little Nicholas can't go out today, it's very cold." If it were hot, Prince Andrew would reply at such times very dryly to his sister, he could go out in his smock, but as it is cold he must wear warm clothes which were designed for that purpose. That is what follows from the fact that it is cold, and not that a child who needs fresh air should remain at home, he would add with extreme logic, as if punishing someone for those secret illogical emotions that stirred within him. At such moments, Princess Mary would think how intellectual work dries men up. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 105. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 105. Remote from these bounties. Let's talk about social media. If you're anything like me, an embarrassingly large part of your day is spent notification watching. What a rush those things bring. Literally. Science increasingly believes that there is a great hedonic impact from social media born of the dopamine loop created by merely anticipating your next notification. Sometimes this connectivity brings us nice things. It's pleasant, certainly, when you receive a nice note from a friend or stranger. But there is a dark side, too. Click on any trending hashtag about religion, race, or politics, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The amount of filth and noxious imbecility our fellow citizens share on the internet is enough to sour even the most optimistic person about the prospects of mass participatory democracy. After reading today's chapter, I'm convinced Prince Andrew Bolkonsky needs to turn off his notifications. At first glance, this may seem like an odd sentiment. After all, Prince Andrew is so happy in this chapter. He leaves the Rostov estate with feelings of great joy and purpose. On his way home, he even passes by his old oak tree and looks at it in a new light. The summer has dressed it in leafy green bounty and other ornaments of blooming, beautiful summer. What a delight. The question is, where does this newfound, seemingly joyful attitude come from? The answer, obviously, is Natasha. What Andrew is feeling here is the first euphoric waves of love, which is to say that his sense of happiness is not indigenous to his own soul. It's actually a foreign invader. As such, he has very little control over it. This is similar to the rush of social media notifications. As such, we can expect that perhaps his happiness will not be so long-lived. It might even turn sour. If Prince Andrew is to find true happiness, it's going to have to come from inside his own self, not from someone or something else. Daily meditation. Myself I keep detached and remote from those bounties, and so fortune has merely taken them away, not wrested them from me. No one is crushed by adverse fortune who has not first been beguiled by her smile. Only those who become enamored of her gifts as if they were their own forever, and expect deference because of them, are prostrated by grief when the deceitful and ephemeral baubles abandon empty and childish minds, ignorant of every abiding satisfaction. Seneca, Consolation to Helvia. All right, so that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 105. Hope you liked it. Thanks so much for listening. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation at PayPal. The links to all that are below. Your support is greatly appreciated. Tomorrow we will be reading and reflecting on chapter 106. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.